You too can have your game taken seriously if you start with a flyby of some mountains. Shit's deep.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic.
Narration.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations.
Are we talking 70s through early 90s Stephen King or late 90s through 2000s Stephen King? Because those are two very different authors. This game tries its hardest to feel like a Stephen King television miniseries, which begs the question, why would you want to be like a Stephen King miniseries? I can't be the only one who's watched The Stand and It among others, not things you should try to emulate.
I've always had a vivid imagination.
Everyone has a vivid imagination, it's just that some people apply it and others don't. And people who claim they have a vivid imagination are assholes.
But this dream unsettled me.
This dream from your vivid imagination consists of basic horror stereotypes. Hitting a hitchhiker with your car on a lonely road at night, an axe murderer, a cabin, a random guy being killed. I can name multiple horror movies with those same cliches off the top of my head.
So yes, it began with a dream.
It began with a dream, or in this case, a dream tutorial.
I'd seen the hitchhiker too late.
Which is odd since he was standing in the middle of the road and was clearly illuminated by your headlights and you weren't distracted by anything. This game has more lens flare than a J.J. Abrams film.
It's not like your stories are any good. Not like they have any artistic merit. You're a lousy writer. Cheap thrills and pretentious shit.
I feel a deep connection with this guy.
Yet beyond the lake he called home lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been. To its ports I've been. Do you understand?
No, and neither do I. How could we? The game just started, so other than this dream, nothing out of place has happened, so you should dispense with the poems and make with the details. Suddenly, I'm getting Life is Strange flashbacks. Yeah, I know this game came out years before Life is Strange, but you gotta admit, shit's suspicious, dog. Both began with a dream sequence about getting to a lighthouse while being chased by a tornado. Both have a protagonist that can alter reality, and both are episodic miniseries. No matter how you look at it, that is a lot of coincidences.
Alan, wake up.
Roll credits. There are actually many points where I could send this game for the title drop, as tends to happen when you name the game after the main character, but I felt this one was the most appropriate.
Just another nightmare. Everything's fine. You dozed off.
The lip syncing in this game is so horrible I can only assume that the characters were motion captured speaking something other than English. Also, ugh, her face is weird. This game came out at a time when developers were experimenting with paid product placement. That's why Alan, a best-selling author, drives around in a Ford 2010 MKT. Alan Wake may be the worst-dressed video game character of all time, even worse than Aiden Pierce of Watch Dogs. He wears an elbow patch sports coat over a green jacket over a hoodie. Bright Falls, Night Springs, Alan Wake. I sense a naming theme. Don't think I didn't notice you there on the dashboard, Microsoft Sync.
I am your biggest fan. I know people say that all the time, but I really am.
I'm glad to hear that.
As someone who works with audio all the time, I can tell when something is off. Like here, where it sounds like they applied too much compression and made Alan sound like he's on a podcast. Then again, considering Alan sounds like that most of the time, that might be the voice he's going for. Every person who's important to the plot in some way is inside this diner.
Carl couldn't make it.
Can all forms of entertainment stop doing this? It never creates the horror they believe it does. You cannot appear more evil while handing someone a set of keys unless they were still attached to the severed hand of the last person to hold them.
But I have the key for you and instructions on how to get to the lake.
The Dark Presence presumably felt Alan when he arrived in town, then somehow put together a plan in minutes to send him to the wrong cabin. It even wrote directions. How it knew he was here on vacation and would come to this diner looking for keys to his rental cabin is beyond me though.
Alan, I'm upstairs. I have a surprise for you.
And that surprise required Alice to take off her pants and leave them draped over the railing. The surprise is that it's not sex. She just wants you to start writing again. Not sure why she needed to remove her pants for that.
Alice? Oh no!
And another video game boils down to, my insert wife, daughter, son here is missing and I must find them plot.
Wake up.
I know I said earlier that I was only going to roll credits once, but if they're going to keep repeating the Alan wake up line, I'm going to keep rolling credits on it. I wonder if Ford approved wrecking that car in the game. With his one page equals one chapter approach, it would seem that Alan's writing style is similar to James Patterson's. The Taken don't attack Alan right now while he's still clueless about everything. Instead it runs off to play cat and mouse. And why does the Dark Presence try so hard to kill Alan anyway? It needs him to finish the novel so it can, well, do whatever. The game never really gives the Dark Presence a goal other than be evil.
I had to figure a way out of this. Any second now, and Stucky would be knocking on the door with his axe like Nicholson in The Shining.
Thanks, Alan. I never could have figured out that this was a reference to one of the most famous horror movie moments of all time if you hadn't said something. Next, a woman is going to be stabbed in a shower, and Alan will mention how it reminds him of Hitchcock's Psycho. That's convenient loaded pistol on a desk, number 1. When you're being chased by a Lovecraftian evil entity, make sure you reach for the battery you can trust to power your flashlight for all of 10 seconds before needing to change batteries. Paid for by Energizer. Fuck Duracell. I know this is a game and therefore needs enemies, but all these darkness-possessed enemies are just local townspeople, and you kill hundreds of them. And the most you ever hear concerning it is the town is known for having missing people. Being known for having missing people would be more in the range of a dozen in a year or two, not 100 in 1 week. That's a national headline. This flashback migraine happens like a dozen times throughout this game. If I were to sin every time it shows up, I'd be here all day. So I'm going to retroactively give it 10 sins.
When I saw the river below, something uncoiled itself inside my head. I realized that I'd have to find a way across.
Rather than an in-game map or waypoint system, Alan helpfully narrates every obvious course of action. I knew I would have to climb the ladder to reach the top. The door was closed. I'd have to turn the knob if I wanted out. Alan could do with a little less of his precious words and with a little more shutting the hell up.
I am Dr. Barclay Colvin, and I'm glad so many...
For all those not aware of the developer Remedy, they love adding live footage into their games. Here it's a parody of The Twilight Zone, only dubbed like it's a kung fu movie.
Keep writing. Outside there's only darkness. Outside the cabin, outside the story, there's only darkness.
The other way they do this is with weird security camera shots of Alan working on the manuscript he wrote after his wife disappeared. It doesn't really make any sense why these things appear on television screens though. It's obviously some supernatural shit, and the only supernatural thing we know of is the dark presence. So why would it be showing him scenes of stuff he doesn't remember and that might help him defeat it? A best-selling author can afford a bigger apartment than this in New York.
I know it's stupid, but it's just... especially when I'm not prepared for it, you know? It gets to me.
We've been married for years and I'm only now explaining my fear of the dark to you. You'd think that would have come up before now.
The dark really spooked me too. When it got really bad, my mom gave me this old light switch.
Oh, sure.
Here it is.
Alan.
Maybe it'll help you too.
He picked that light switch up from the coffee table, and I assume it was there before today and you've seen it before. So why would you disbelieve his story and never once have been curious about why he kept an old light switch on the coffee table? Why do flashbacks always end before the sex scene? If anything, that's the part I would remember in detail. Do doctors still do house calls? They don't even discuss payment at the end of this. That's just unreal.
Can you tell me what happened?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Alan just finished telling himself that he couldn't tell the doctor about his memory loss because they might send him to the hospital. Yet he has no worries about telling the sheriff that he lost his memory and can't remember what happened to his wife, even though they might hold him for questioning. This close-up of Alan's phone isn't even the most shameless Verizon product placement in the game.
Hello?
Alan, please help me.
Alice?
Stop talking to the law. You'll do exactly what I say if you ever want to see your wife again.
A guy who's pretending to have Alice calls Alan and tells him to stop talking to the police. That's a pretty standard kidnapper demand. However, this guy should have no idea that Alan is even here or that his wife is missing. Alan's been gone for over a week and was only brought to the station a few hours ago. The kidnapper even found time to put Alice's driver's license, something that would be impossible for him to have, by the way, in an abandoned car outside the station to prove he has her. He also has perfect timing with his phone call, since he called the minute Alan got his phone back from the sheriff.
I'm Dr. Emil Hartman. I'd like to invite you to stay at Cauldron Lake Lodge.
Does the sheriff just send out a public notice to everyone in town when she brings someone in? That's the only reason I could come up with for all these people knowing Alan is here. Also, later it's revealed that the kidnapper works for Dr. Hartman, and they are both simultaneously trying to get Alan to Hartman's lodge at the same time using very different tactics.
You set something up with her?
I invited her here. My clinic is a place where...
Your wife contacting a therapist on your behalf is hardly worth risking arrest by punching him in front of the sheriff.
Get your hands off of my client.
Who are you?
I'm Barry Wheeler, his agent.
Barry is the most Seinfeld-esque character I've ever seen in a game. And no, that's not just because he wears a Gore-Tex style coat.
Damn it, Barry, they'll kill her.
I would not risk destroying light sources if I were you.
It happened just the way it was on that page. I found it'll come back for me. You must... the lights.
Unless that page also told you that the Taken are hurt by light, you should have no way of knowing that. How come the Taken can't use guns? Rusty had a gun with him when he was possessed, but used an axe instead. Losing one weapon in a cutscene means you lose all of your weapons.
That flashlight's kid stuff. The flares will keep the bastards away.
How does everyone suddenly know to use a light to fight the Taken? Alan had to have this stuff explained to him in a dream. And why is the kidnapper not freaked out at all by the sight of shadow people trying to kill him? Somehow I don't think he expected this to happen tonight.
Let's cut the act now. Where's my wife?
I knew you were going to say that. I read it all before.
Are you not at all freaked out by the fact that you read about this exact conversation happening in a page of the manuscript you found? Because I would be freaked out by that.
I want the entire manuscript, or she's gonna suffer bad.
If you've already found pages of Alan's manuscript like others have, then you should realize that Alan doesn't have the complete manuscript. Also, as far as criminal plans go, stealing a manuscript and trying to sell it may be one of the dumbest imaginable. Also, if you knew how this conversation was going to go, how come you didn't know Alan would knock both of you over the railing? The kidnapper runs off in a forest filled with Taken without a gun or a flashlight, yet he somehow survives. Nope, can't possibly run after the guy who might know where my wife is. I'll just watch him go.
The man wanted a manuscript. I had to try to write him one to get Alice back.
So you were going to write it by hand? That's not how manuscripts work.
This is Rose.
Rose?
I found Mr. Wake's pages.
Oh, you sweet, brilliant girl.
Could you and Mr. Wake come get them?
Right now, Barry should be asking how the lady from the diner even knows about the manuscript. Barry himself didn't learn about it until last night. That, and she's speaking like a robot, should make you at least a little suspicious.
How the hell did she get her hands on the manuscript anyway?
Again, do either of you not think it's weird that she would even know about the manuscript, let alone have pages to it? After being drugged by Rose, Barbara Jaggard tries to make Alan finish writing the manuscript, even though there's no typewriter in Rose's trailer to write it with. And Alan just wakes up and escapes like it was no big deal anyway, so this trap she set was completely pointless. The landlord of this trailer park got so worried about Rose being alone with Alan and Barry all day in her trailer that he called the police. And the police response is way out of proportion to what should be a routine call. They bring the entire police force, a search helicopter, and an FBI agent.
This is Agent Nightingale, FBI! Get him up, Hemingway! You're under arrest! You move a muscle, I'll unload right in your goddamn face! Stay right where you are, Triple A!
Get used to Nightingale using a different author's name every time he refers to Alan. He names 2 different authors in his very first line here. That's just an excessive amount of bad cop. Also, his name is Nightingale. Told you there was a naming theme going on. Also, why the hell is there an FBI agent in a small town like Bright Falls? And why is he so hell-bent on killing Alan? I'm not sure if I should send this game for being inaccurate about cops opening fire on an unarmed man, or send this game for being too accurate about cops opening fire on an unarmed man. Suddenly, I'm getting Max Payne flashbacks. I was waiting for that one. This cop car was being driven when it was flipped by the dark presence. Upon inspecting the crash, though, no one was inside it. The cops track Alan to the local radio station. I'm not really sure how they did that, especially considering most of them were killed by the dark presence in the woods. You'd think that would be a bigger concern.
Nowhere to run down, Dan Brown!
Seriously, just use his real name. It's not cute. That's twice in one night that Nightingale shot at Alan when a civilian was in the line of fire. Hashtag authors' lives matter. None of the cops follow Alan by jumping over the porch after him. Even Nightingale, who has a murder boner for Alan, just yells from the road. Also, Alan loses his weapons in the fall, so that's another losing one weapon in a cutscene means you lose all of your weapons cliche.
You hear me, H.P. Lovecraft?
If you keep this up, you are eventually going to run out of well-known authors to name drop and have to resort to using authors like Dean Koontz, and no one wants that. What do you do when you have very little enemy variety in your game? Just have inanimate objects come to life and fly at the protagonist. Saves a bundle.
Wake!
Where the hell are you?
Change of plans. You know where Mirror Peak is? It's a big mountain north of where you are. You follow the path from the mine, you can't miss it. There's a lookout point there. I'll be waiting.
Why would you change the location you were supposed to meet Alan at from the safe building in the daytime to a remote forest at night after what happened to the 2 of you the other night? You could have at least called him earlier and had Alan meet you at the viewing platform when there was still daylight. Alan survives this.
Alice.
That is one unwanted dream reality transition.
You're a patient at my clinic. Have been for a while now. The shock of your wife's death triggered a mental illness.
No, you're lying.
You're suffering from various symptoms of undifferentiated schizophrenia.
For a professional therapist, Dr. Hartman is pretty deluded if he thinks someone who isn't already crazy is going to fall for this.
These 2 are the Anderson brothers. They are, well, in advanced stages of dementia.
Should you really be discussing private patient-doctor information about those 2 with Alan while right in front of them?
Hey, we like him, don't we, bro? He's gotta go to the farm.
The Anderson Farm. Valhalla!
We wrote it all down, lest we'd forget.
Actually, they didn't write anything down. They made one verse in a song on one of their records about someone who actually knows everything. And they failed to mention that, meaning it's a miracle that Alan ends up finding the message. Actually, writing it down would have been way more practical.
Here, Sonny, here's something for you. Gave me a rash, but I kept it safe from these bastards.
You should probably wash your hands after touching that manuscript page.
The cops found me at Rose's trailer, but they didn't hassle me too much.
They didn't? They shot at Alan the moment they saw him and brought every cop in the county down on him. And they would have found you drugged in Rose's trailer and Rose acting strange. I'm pretty certain they would have held you for questioning at the least. You brought the cardboard cutout with you from the diner? Did we need to lighten the mood or something?
And then I get a call from Hartman, that son of a bitch, who tells me you're here and I should come pick you up, but when I got here, 2 goons clobbered me and stuck me in there.
Why would Dr. Hartman call Barry to tell him Alan is at his lodge just so he could lure him there and lock Barry up too? Just don't tell him. That's convenient pistol lying on a table number 2.
Really, Wake, come on. Let's work together on this.
You have no idea.
Hartman would have to be aware of all the shit going on around Alan by this point. He's wanted by the police, multiple people are missing or dead, including Alan's wife and the guy Hartman sent to capture Alan, and yet he wanted to keep Alan at his lodge to write books for the foreseeable future so he could make money off them. Alan is a straight-up murderer. He locked Hartman in the room with the dark presence.
Want access to thousands of applications? Verizon Wireless has you covered.
I told you it wasn't the most shameful Verizon product placement. You brought the cardboard cutout with you from the lodge? I guess we really did need something to lighten the mood. Losing one weapon in a cutscene means you lose all of your weapons.
She's trapped in the darkness at the bottom of the lake, but she's not dead.
Ow! How can you know that?
I know, Barry. I can...
Ow!
No, listen. I can bring her back. I can find her. There's something special about this place. The lake, it does something to the works of art created here. It makes them come true.
This is the part where I'd raise my hand and ask how you know all of that. You had a flashback of Alice being dragged underwater and yourself at a typewriter. That is not enough to piece all of this together.
It does something to the works of art created here. It makes them come true. But there's a catch. The dark presence, whatever that thing is, twists it to its own ends. That's why all of this is happening.
Is Alan really the only creative person to come to this town since Thomas Zane in the 70s? Was there not even a single fan fiction writer somewhere in Bright Falls the Dark Presence could have used?
We just need to find it. Look out!
You're the one driving, you look out! Alan and Barry survive being knocked off a cliff so hard that it throws both of them from the Hummer. You don't walk away from a wreck like that. I'm pretty sure I can call a bolt of lightning out of nowhere that turns on a pyrotechnics display and kills several Taken, an act of Deus Ex Machina. Also, if the Anderson brothers were committed to Hartman's lodge, why do they have a stage prepared at their farm complete with pyrotechnics display? If that was how the performance was designed to end, it would have killed a good number of people watching in the audience.
I'm always right about everything, and if I don't get my way, I'll sulk all day long.
You brought the cutout with you from the car wreck? They are dedicated to their joke, I'll give them that.
We need to find Cynthia Weaver.
The Anderson twins really prepared for the off chance that someone would need to know about Cynthia Weaver. They wrote a song years ago about the lamp lady who lives in town who knows about Zane and the dark presence. Then they put that song on replay in their house, presumably since the 70s. Also, there is no way that is a song from the 70s.
Hey, Al. Lots of hours before dawn. Might as well get some rest. And by rest, I mean drunk.
Sure, why not? You're only in a farmhouse surrounded by ancient nebulous evil. Seems like a plan. Really wanted to lighten the mood. In this flashback to when Alan was possessed and started writing the manuscript after Alice disappeared, the first 3 letters he types are KJJ. I don't think that's the start of a bestseller, let alone an English word. The game is aware that we're watching and provides a jump scare. I provide it with a star wipe. Alan was inside the cabin that was at the bottom of the lake, but after Zane frees him, the cabin is suddenly back on the surface, allowing Alan to escape. In this shot, we can see that the road was blocked by logs. Somehow Alan managed to get past that point and is further up the road.
That's right, James Joyce.
I'm beginning to think that Nightingale doesn't even know Alan's real name. He hasn't said it once. Also, how did you know Alan was here at the Andersons' farm? Now Alan is just having visions of what he has to do. Considering this game follows a plot Alan wrote in his manuscript, I'm not sure if I should send the devs or him.
Wait, we're in jail now?
You were arrested in the morning. It's now night. How can you only now be conscious of that?
Well, I've got you now, Raymond Chandler. It's all here. All the evidence, including conspiracy to murder a federal agent. There's no way you're walking out of here. You hear me in there, Bret Easton Ellis?
Just hurry up and die already, Dirty Harry. See, I can do it too. Nightingale's whole reason for being obsessed with Alan is because he found a page of the manuscript about his death. However, since he didn't have the cover sheet, he couldn't have known Alan wrote it. And it also doesn't explain why he was in Bright Falls to begin with.
It's all here. All the evidence, including conspiracy to murder a federal agent.
You're going to use a work of fiction as evidence?
I've had enough of this crap. Wake, I'm gonna trust you with this.
With what? Did you really arrest someone on the word of a crazed FBI agent and not find out why?
Whoa! Get back in the cell, Stephen King!
At this point, you're only digging your hole deeper.
The only way you're leaving this place is over my dead...
Oh, thank God, he said the cliche that kills you. Only one person in this town wakes up and says anything about all the fighting Alan and the sheriff are doing in the streets.
What are the Christmas lights for?
Protection, man! Like garlic against vampires?
How are you powering those Christmas lights?
Well, my dad used to be a cop there. Tells some pretty wild stories.
Was his name Max Payne by any chance? Why is an old woman allowed to live in a decommissioned power plant? And if it's a decommissioned, why are all the lights and equipment still working? If you lost your weapons when you fell out of the helicopter, then they should be where you landed. And yes, you know the routine by now. Losing one weapon in a cutscene means you lose all of your weapons.
Young man, I've been waiting a very long time for you.
You have? Then why didn't you say anything when you met him at the diner? That's where all this started. I'm pretty sure water pipes wouldn't have such generous lighting on the inside.
This is no time to be a selfish idiot.
That's my best friend!
Good thing Barry called right when Alan was next to a ladder that leads out of the pipe. Barry and the sheriff survived this.
Alan, 7 years old, would fight sleep to the bitter end.
Thomas Zane has the voice of Max Payne. That's not a bad thing.
One evening, his mother, sitting by his bed, offered him an old light switch. She called it the clicker, and flicking the switch would turn on a magical light that would drive the beast away. Now, almost 30 years later, Alan thought of this as he stood on the rim of Cauldron Lake, the clicker in his hand.
So did Thomas Zane write Alan into existence back in the 70s as a way to stop the Dark Presence, or did Alan write Thomas Zane writing Alan into existence back in the 70s to stop the Dark Presence? My head hurts. Chekhov's light switch.
I can get to her now. I can finish this.
But before that, let's flash back to New York so we can see how much Alan and Alice love each other. You might want to return that TV, Alan. I've seen internet GIFs that have higher resolution.
I want to thank all our guests for the evening. Alan Wake, Sam Lake. Once more, do the face for his Sam.
Max Payne face. This game's ass rendering technology is way too far behind the curve to pull off shots like this.
I'm going to write an ending to the story in the manuscript on my own terms, to make it all right.
Why can't you just write it here?
The last page is still in the typewriter. I need to read it first. Everything needs to be just right. Zane tried to cut some corners, and it didn't end well.
Why does a nebulous cancer of evil care about creative writing standards? If it were me, I would just have Alan write a few pages about me taking over the world and then slap a "the end" on it.
Okay, ready when you are.
I'm sorry, Sarah, but I need to do this alone.
Hero has to do it alone cliché. Not as shameless as the commercial, but considering this is the build-up to the finale, this still feels incredibly wrong. Energizer gets a billboard too. If the Dark Presence has the power to turn day to night whenever it wants, why hasn't it used that power before now? This game really likes its physics engine. The Dark Presence could have chosen a better place for a showdown rather than the cliff edge that has a crate full of flares lying around. Why would you drop the flare gun? And yes, that's losing one weapon in a cutscene means you lose all of your weapons. Alan survives yet another fall that should kill him.
Don't mind him, he's Mr. Scott. Your friends will meet him when you're gone.
I'll be the villain in the disappointing sequel. Figuring out that Barbara was an evil monster would have been a lot easier if this hole had been visible in her chest when she handed Alan the cabin keys.
I will find a new face to wear. Someone else to dream me free.
We just fisted an old woman to death.
I understood what I had to do now. I knew how to write the ending to Departure. There's light and there's darkness. Cause and effect. There's guilt and there's atonement. But the scales always need to balance. Everything has a price.
And that's why I wrote a sequel bait ending.
Alan, wake up.
Roll credit. Oh, they are.
Cheap thrills and pretentious shit. That's all you're good for.